Okay, hi guys. Hope you can all hear me. You hear me, Craig? Craig just asked me to talk a little bit about how I've been using Waypoints. So Waypoints is a new platform, I guess, that has come with Mathspace this year that links in with Mathspace, talks to Mathspace, I guess. It's a diagnostic tool largely. So I will just show you how I've been using it and how you might like to once you get into it. So first of all, this is a teacher view of the teacher dashboard. So this one here just gives you like a snapshot of a point in time. I've blanked out the students' names on the left there. Roughly what grade level they're at. So the green ticks means that they have sort of mastered all the outcomes in that year level. The green circles or the light green circles means they're working towards, and the yellow dashes means they've just started. Is that correct, Craig?
Yes, that's right.
The grey means they haven't attempted any of those as yet. So up the top there, you can see you can filter that by class, or you can filter it by strand. There's 3 different strands: number and algebra, geometry and measurement is the second one, and stats and probability is the last one. So if you want to drill down a little bit further, you can filter by strand. As Sal mentioned, growth is a big feature of Mathspace, and it's the same with Waypoints. So there's a growth dashboard as well. This is a view the teacher gets. So each of those circles represents a student in that class 8.5. And if you hover over those, it will give you a little bit more detail about which student that is and how much growth they have shown in that time period. So in a perfect world, everyone would be in the top right-hand corner where they're working closely up to year 11 work and showing a lot of growth, but the reality is that's not always the case. So you can see there's some there that are showing negative growth. There's some that are showing a lot of growth. There's some that have shown a lot. If you look at probably the one that's sort of in the left top quadrant, that's highest up. So that's someone that's shown a lot of growth, but is still working towards, grade 6 level in my year 8 class. So that student is one that I'd be, giving a lot of praise to because they've shown probably the 4th most amount of growth in the class, even though they are, still working towards grade 6 level in that strand of number and algebra. What I'll do now is when you start Waypoints, I'll give you a student view now. So the students have to check in. And at the start, it's probably the most difficult bit. They have to do 10 check-ins at the start to start the process off. A check-in is 10 questions from any strand, from any year level from grade 3 to year 10. So there's going to be questions there where they won't know where to start. They'll just have to skip them. And you need to get those 10 check-ins, so it's 100 questions in all done, to give you sort of baseline data. And after that, you can sort of show your growth onwards from that point. So that was something that I found a bit challenging in term 1. So I'd set the occasional one for homework. It's a good way to settle your class down at the start. Just come in, open up Waypoints, do a check-in. Did it that way on one class. I set them to do 4 Waypoints check-ins one night for homework just to try and knock it over. So up to you how you use it, but you need to get those 10 check-ins done as quick as you can. So you've got that baseline data. Then after those check-ins are done, the students will get they get this view. So when they log in, they sort of pick whatever strand they're studying at the moment. So in year 8 at Haileybury, it's all number and algebra up to this point. We've just moved on to geometry. So they click on number and algebra. So they'll only get number and algebra questions. So that will only measure the growth in that area. So it's a bit more targeted as to things that are relevant to what they're doing in the classroom at that time. So this is what the students see in their skills report when they log in. So I'm going to show you 3 different views here. I'll show you a sort of a low student, a mid-range, and a high-achieving student. So I call these the Manhattan charts. I don't know, Craig, have they got an official name?
No, I think that's the name I thought as well. Yeah, reminded.
Manhattan
reminds me of
charts,
the,
and each column is a skyscraper. That's the terminology I use with the students. So this is a year 8 student, but as you can see in the number and algebra section, this was a student that came to us from another school. We didn't know a lot about where their maths was at. And I was finding they were really struggling with the year 8 tasks. And then when you go into Waypoints and you have a look at the chart, well, you can see why. So there's certainly, I was finding there wasn't a lot of point in setting them a year 8 task on Mathspace, because they actually needed to build up the skills from year 4 and 5 first. So I was able to direct them to those tasks. The students, teachers don't have this view, so you need to sort of look over your student's shoulder and sort of get them to understand what the different skyscrapers mean. So each tick on the skyscraper is expanded out to a skill on the right-hand side there. So you can direct them to one of the skills that's unticked. They won't all necessarily link in with what you're covering right now. For example, like percentages and things is in number and algebra. We don't cover percentages until term 3. So you try and pick out one that's you think will be useful at that time. And those little Mathspace icons, they will direct you to a Mathspace task which practices that skill. So the student then just clicks on that Mathspace icon. It takes them straight to the Mathspace task to practice that skill straight away. Hopefully they'll have experienced some success there, and they'll be able to build up all the ticks in that skyscraper. I guess we're trying to have, for a year 8 maths class, you're trying to have everything, all the ticks up to the year 8 skyscraper by the end of the year. So that's one way you can sort of identify gaps in a student's knowledge. I reckon it's been particularly helpful given that we had remote learning last year, where that suited some students really well. Others probably didn't make any difference, and others didn't suit at all. And they've got gaps in their knowledge from year 7 that you can sort of find out which ones they are, identify them and direct them straight to some skill practice that's going to hopefully fill those gaps, so they're not left behind the next year in that area. So let's have a look at that's the same list of, that's just a little bit of a close up of the skills from the previous slide. So this is a mid-range student. That's what theirs might look like. So you can, and I've put the year 8 outcomes over on the right-hand side, but you can see there's still some missing in year 6 and year 7. So I would encourage the student to go back and have a look at what those are and see if they could direct themselves to a task that will turn that yellow dash into a green tick. I think Sal mentioned your students are quite motivated to fill in the ticks in all their skyscrapers. So yeah, and that skill in grade 6 might be sort of necessary for them to succeed in the next skill in year 7 or year 8. So you can hover over that, find out exactly what it is, and sort of pitch it at the right level. So that's and I've got one circle there, outcome down there, it says T3. So that's sort of what I was looking at before, talking about before. So that's a percentage question, which we don't cover at Haileybury till term 3. So I wouldn't get them to do that at this point. I would direct them towards one of the other tasks that sits in with what we're doing at the moment, which is linear graphs, linear equations. So that's where those descriptions on the right-hand side are really useful for you. So I'll just show a high achieving student now. So yeah, you can see this student's already working at a year 9/year 10 level. But they're quite interested in going ahead and sort of doing the next hardest thing, if you like. So for example, when we're doing linear graphs, I would direct them to a year 9 or year 10 task, which is related, for example, dealing with parabolas. So it's similar, I guess, but it's the next level up. And yeah, the extension students I find in particular are really motivated to, like, as soon as this student. His eyes lit up when he saw this Manhattan chart and all these empty boxes that he was going to be able to fill in as quickly as he could. And you can see he's done a pretty good job of that already. And so he knows how to navigate to this himself now. And so if he's completed a task earlier, he's finding a task that I've set for the rest of the class too easy, I'll just say, okay, log into your waypoints, find the next task that you want to have a go at that's related to the topic we're doing now. So yeah, in summary, the way that I use waypoints, I think it's great for assessing your overall growth, and you can drill down by strand. It identifies gaps in the student knowledge, which I think is really important given the remote learning environment we're in last year. And you can direct students to address gaps really easily. And that can be really useful in the lead up to assessment. So if you've got a test coming up, students can go into waypoints and look at the skills that they haven't got the ticks for and practice those straight away. And it's great for providing extension tasks as well, as you saw with my high achieving student there at the end. So I'm not sure if that's the way it's supposed to be used or that's the way you intended to be used, Craig, but that's the way I've been using it so far. It's still sort of only a term and a half in, but yeah, that's what I found it useful for it so far.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Leah, look, in terms of how it's meant to be used, look, as you say, it's so new that we're still getting lots of different teachers from across the country, telling us how, they've tried this and this has worked and that's worked and they use it this way and that didn't quite work. So yeah, the way you're using it, for me as a teacher, that'd probably be the same way I'd be using it as well. So yeah, no, that's all really, really interesting data. And that last one you showed reminds me of Waypoints wasn't available when I was using Mathspace at my school, but I actually used the data to convince the people that were helping students with their subject selection that a year 10 student needed to do further maths when they're in year 10 rather than wait a couple of years. And that student ended up getting the highest result as a year 10 student in further maths. So, and the student also did year 11 methods as that same year 10 student. So it's great to be able to drive that conversation around students doing even VCE subjects when they're ready to. So when they get to the VCE, they can do the extension subjects at uni. So it sort of helps with both ends, doesn't it? And also in the middle there. So yeah, that was the first thing I thought of when I saw that last student. All right, we've got a couple of questions that I'm just going to go back through, and Sal or Sam, either of you can answer this one. We might both like to have an input on this one. It's from Brendan. How much do you rely on the instruction from the program, like the lessons and the videos and so on and so forth, compared to your own teacher direct instruction to individuals, to small groups and to classes?
So for me, I'm still explicitly teaching content. However, as you can see with the waypoints that Sam's shown, there is those children that are moving a long way forward. They're probably using the lessons through Mathspace because they're so motivated to keep moving and keep going that they're jumping on those lessons so that they can keep moving, because the lessons that I'm teaching really are not catering for them at that point. So it's really good because I feel like I am catering for them through Mathspace. And I know that my weaker students definitely I'm directing them back. So after I've taught a lesson, as well as our use of Canvas, but I'm also saying to them to make sure they're going in and watching those lessons as an additional part of their learnings, because some of those children need to hear it more than once. So for those children, they're definitely using the Mathspace lessons, but I always run an explicit lesson in my classroom first.
Sam, do you have any thoughts on that one? Or?
Yeah, very similar to what Sal does. Yeah, that's
cool. Right.
Agreed.
We had a question there from Mo, which is probably more for us, but in the future, could we as teachers limit the strands to help students select the skills in a bit more of a focused way? And Mo's put a comment there about that. I believe the plan is eventually for students to be able to pick a particular outcome to do a check-in on as well. So that'll also mean that they'll be much more targeted rather than having to do it on the number and algebra, or possibly for a school like Haileybury, they'll do it as a strand. They'll still be able to do that, but they'll be also able to do much more targeted check-ins as well. Yeah, so there's some of the future things that'll help with that as well. Any other questions anyone wants to ask verbally, or as I say, you can put them up on the thing. Otherwise, just a couple of things before we move on to Mo's. I did have a very nice little QR code ready for you to be able to use to get a free trial for those schools that you're going to get a hard copy of when we were there. But and we will send that out to you after today. But for those who are interested in a trial of Waypoints, if you've got your phone handy, you can jump on there now and grab that QR code, and it will take you straight to our trial page. When you actually do that, I'll come back to this later on. When you actually do that, it will ask you if you're a teacher or a student, or you can use your own Mathspace account if you're an existing school that's not already using Waypoints. Once you get your trial set up, whichever one you are, you can then invite teachers and invite your students in the top right corner of the Waypoints trial, and you can get on and use that. So with your students, so that's there and ready to go now for those schools that are not already using Waypoints. All right. So, and if not, you can Google, you can search for it anyway, and find your way to it that way also. But I'm trying to make it nice and easy with that QR code.